Hi, welcome everybody. This is INTERGEO TV with our expert talks. Thank you very much for joining. And today we will keep it, I think, colorful, maybe also simple. We talk about cameras, pictures, and why they matter more than most of the geospatial people think. And we will talk to Barry Bassnett. And what I found about him on LinkedIn is that he is owner and founder of RICHPiX. Our INTERGEO TV team, or our INTERGEO team, met him at the 3DICE conference in Prague, which partnered with INTERGEO, and there he was on stage. So yeah, he's kind of a visionary geospatial maverick. He is a technical photographer, communicator, and knowledge manager. He's a compelling storyteller with over 40 years of experience in revolutionizing information management and spatial data capture. And but he's also passionate about leveraging reality capture technology to empower communities and to preserve cultural heritage. And this was also kind of the presentation he gave at the 3DICE conference in Prague. And so we thought, Barry, welcome to INTERGEO. You will also be on stage at the application stage. And right now we want to get to know better and that people of the INTERGEO community know what you will talk about. And so welcome to INTERGEO.
Thank you, Denise. Nice to be here. I'm really excited about this. I'm passionate about my subject, as you people who know me know. I could talk about it for hours, but essentially what I'm trying to do is get people back to some fundamentals of how we capture data, and the importance of just simple tools like a camera, and how we can use it in a better way to help ourselves, but more importantly, help our clients get more information. So that's really what my job is at the moment, is to teach people and advise people on how they can get better images and also how they can use those images in different workflows. So it's great fun. I mean, we're looking at some amazing technologies would have come through. I used to be I call myself a photogrammetrist, but I'm trying to rebrand myself. Instead of just photogrammetry, talking about a much bigger subject, which is spatial imagery, how we use different images for different workflows. We don't always need to create a 3D model, for example. We could use 360 imagery, and we don't always need 360 imagery. We just need to know, take a good photograph. And there are sort of three issues that I try and manage or look at. One is the quality of the image. How can we get the best quality image, even if we don't know very much about photography? The second thing is, how do we share them? How do we publish them? What format? How is it best? But the third one is what I call findability, because we're taking thousands and thousands of photographs in the geospatial sector. But the problem is, how do we find them? And to find them, we really need to know three things. We need to know where on the planet or in the building, in the factory, in the school, were they actually taken. We also need to know where they were taken, or when they were taken, sorry, because quite often what we're doing is comparing different conditions. What was it like before we repaired it? What was it like afterwards? So we need to be able to timestamp and manage different versions or different dates of photography. But the third and most important thing is, well, what was it a photograph of? Normally we'll just have a number and a file, and the only way we can find out what it is a photograph of is by physically opening that file and looking at it. Well, wouldn't it be a lot better if we could tag photographs, sort them, so we can identify and retrieve them? My analogy I talk about, and a lot of people will be bored of hearing this, but I use the atlas metaphor analogy. I can have a beautiful atlas on my coffee table, and it'll look great. But it's only of any use if I put an index at the back so I can find what I'm looking for. And in point clouds, in GIS, in orthophotos, in meshes, in thousands of photographs, I need to find what I'm looking for. So although I'm a photographer, because I'm a photographer, I have to be able to organize and find the right photographs. And those are skills and little tricks. And in cases, it doesn't cost any money at all to do this, just a slight change in the workflow. So that's what I'm really interested about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get surveyors in the geomatic industry really interested in the power of photography.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is how it developed in your life, in your business life and personal life during the last decades. And Barry, we will dive into that about taking and sharing the findability of pictures and the geospatial context and all that. So, but let's start with your story. So, what was the moment when you first fall in love with images? What got you started with that love to photos and imageries?
Well, it was my dad, who was a very keen photographer, and for my 12th birthday, he gave me a single lens reflex camera, a very cheap one. And developing chemicals and things, I spent 2 years photographing chess pieces just to learn about depth of field and focus and then developing. And so I've been taking photographs. I know it doesn't look it, but I've been taking photographs for over 50 years. But then I moved into, in my late 20s, I started working for the Ordnance Survey in the UK, our national mapping agency. And of course, photogrammetry was the major tool that we used. So I found my passion actually being used as a work. You know, these are really boring photographs. They're just boring photographs from an aircraft. But I found them really exciting because it allowed me to actually move and show these things in 3D, stereo vision. So that was sort of a love of the outdoors, mapping and photography all came together in one.
Okay. So you just mentioned your career working for Ordnance Survey. So what was the moment, what pushed you from just taking pictures or even boring pictures to building a company around it that goes far beyond?
Well, after the Ordnance Survey, I went into private surveying, but then I had about 15 years working in industry using photographs to measure complex objects, things like machine tools, aircraft, where we were using photogrammetry at that time. This is the days before laser scanning. So we were using photogrammetry to do very, very accurate measurements. So I became more of an artistic photographer, but into a technical photographer. And technical photography, and the reason my company is called RICHPiX is because I'm not interested in taking pretty pictures. I mean, I am on the, that's what I do when I'm trying to avoid my clients and things. But I want data for every single pixel, and that's the point. So that's why my business is called RICHPiX, Rich Pixels of Information. I then started doing 3D modeling 25 years ago, modeling oil platforms, oil refineries, using photogrammetry. And then laser scanners came in and we transited to using that, but I was never really happy with the quality that we got from laser scanning. Lots of issues, and I've kept up the photogrammetry part. And then suddenly in the last 10 years, there's been the arrival of drones, air drones, subsea drones, and they require photogrammetry, and suddenly all the skills that I developed were in demand again. Because people were buying softwares and taking the SD card from the drone and getting back and wondering why the model wasn't working. Well, mostly it's because of the image that you input. So what I've been doing now is my business now is about training people on how to get the best images, 3D models, how they can use it in all sorts of workflows, from 360 imagery to Gaussian splats, right the way through. It's all about the quality of the image. So whatever I've been, although in some cases it looks like I've been doing slightly different, photography has been at the heart of everything, or technical photography. I'm also a surveyor as well, because without surveying skills, you can't. Photogrammetry is all about the control you put in. So you do need to be a surveyor. So I've been a surveyor for a long time as well.
Okay. Fascinating. You just mentioned also the time when the drones came up, the drone technology. We also had that trend at INTERGEO at the trade fair. There was the inter-area solutions, and then there was a huge sector only with drones and so on. And many, I heard during that time, I also talked to people, and I heard so often, I mean, a drone just is a new kind of a tripod flying around. But the thing which is still very important is that camera that is on that flying tripod or on that new robot who's walking around and so on. So the camera is still the heart of it. This is also, you say.
Oh, absolutely. A drone is just a camera on a stick.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. And I also say a drone is just a tool for someone who's an expert in something else. Because a drone will take images, but then the images have to be interpreted or used by somebody who is a surveyor or a photogrammetrist or a thermal imaging specialist or an agriculturalist, whatever it might be. It's just a tool to get data. Yeah, obviously there's skills in flying a drone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you just buy a drone and automatically you're a surveyor. Far from it. You do need to have some idea of what can go wrong, because in many cases it'll be fine, but in some cases it goes wrong. But you need to be a surveyor to identify when there is an error, and also how to fix it and mitigate those. So for me, you're exactly right. And with looking at the tools that are coming through now, I can see a whole raft of tools that may replace laser scanning, that may replace some surveying technology, but they'll all be based on the skill of the camera operator to get a good image. If it's blurry, it's of no use. If it's out of focus, it's no use. If it's got too many shadows in high detail, it's of no use. And it turns out actually shadows are really easy to fix. The hardest part is dealing with bright sunshine. And bright sunshine is the thing that kills photogrammetry more than shadows do, and more than most processors, just because of the way our cameras are designed to capture an image. So that's that. So for me, the camera is such a fundamental tool of a surveyor. It should be taught. Photography should be taught to all surveyors, in my view, because if not now, in the future, a lot of the techniques we'll be using photography and AI and all sorts of new tools.
I see. So is it also, if you would have to explain it to a friend at dinner, so what's the biggest misunderstanding about taking pictures for maps and models? Would you say it also that's the kind of how you take it? If there's sun, if there's shadow, if there's how would you explain it to him or her?
Okay, well, the problem is that the human eye can see around about 22 f-stops of light, and one f-stop is doubling the amount of light. The average camera can only see 12, and a good camera 15 f-stops, so it can never gather all the same light that we see with the human eye. The human eye is just amazing. So we're always taking a sample of what is there. So if we've got a very bright, shiny surfaces in a bright, sunny day and dark shadows, a camera can't cope with that. What it will see is it will overexpose the shiny, bright areas, so you've got no data in there, and it will underexpose or make dark and add noise to the shadow area. What we try and do is try and minimize that so we get a data for every pixel. If you don't do that, then all sorts of weird things happen. The photogrammetry algorithms miss tie points. You create holes in meshes. It all turns very, very ugly. And for every lovely video I see on LinkedIn of a beautiful model building, I can tell you there's probably 2 or 3 out there that are rubbish and just look appalling and don't make any sense at all. Because I know that because people send them to me, say, Barry, can you fix this? And almost invariably it's to do with the image quality that you put in. The same thing happens for satellite imagery.
And how do you fix it? How do you fix it then?
Okay, so there's a number of different ways you can do it. The one you will look at is to edit the photographs and batch process the images, looking at three aspects of it. One is to recover details in the shadows. The second one is to recover details in the highlights, but probably the one everyone misses in the middle, which is to look at what we call the mid-tone contrast. That is what makes, because most of the 3D models and ortho images we get, ortho mosaics we get, are very flat and boring. They don't look real. But if you can tweak the image and the contrast, it pops. It makes it look much more real. So the idea really is to look at image editing batch processes before you do anything with it. It doesn't take long. You know, I did 1.8 million photographs by myself last year, and it's like, well, how do you do that? Because I know how to do it, and I know batch processes, and I know what I can get away with. It's not hard. I mean, I train, my business really is to train people how to do this. And it's not really that hard. I can teach anybody to do it in a day, I think. I taught my mum how to do it in a day. So if my mum can do it and she's 86, I think I can cope with most surveyors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Barry, so let's make this real with a description of one of your, I don't know if it's a favorite project of you, but my colleagues told me in Prague, you told about the London Cathedral. You brought some very special...
Okay, Westminster Cathedral.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't on site, sorry. It was Westminster.
No, it's okay. It's a Westminster, so there's Westminster Abbey, which is the big, and then there's Westminster Cathedral, which is the Roman Catholic.
What made it tricky and what made it so fascinating for you? That also my colleagues told me about this and the pictures, and they said, wow, so Barry is really, fascinated about that project and when he talks about it. So it's, we're all keen.
Well, yeah, photogrammetry is all about light and working with the light you have. There's two sorts of types of heritage documentation. There's the type that goes on in a museum, in a studio, where they can photograph a mug and spin it on a turntable with perfectly controlled lights. Lovely, that's great. But what do you do outside with objects that are too big to bring in the studio where you've got different lights? Now, the problem with Westminster Cathedral was daylight coming through stained glass windows, artificial light, dark light, sunlight. But then the thing about it is that most of the ground floor is covered in these tesserae, small mosaic tiles about the size of my little finger. Okay, and they needed to document all these to see which ones are missing. But many of them just act like a mirror. So I had 1 million mirrors I was photographing. Probably more than that. I dread to think how many there are. But every single image that we needed for photogrammetry had to be thought about and had to be worked through in terms of focus, in terms of exposure, in terms of using a thing called bracketing in order to capture the whole of the dynamic range in the scene. Because what I couldn't have was lots of little tiles with no data in them, because it was shiny. It was like a mirror shining into your eye. But there were thousands of them, all at different angles. So it was a very, very tricky job to do. And in fact, I don't think many people have had to do anything like that. That was coupled up with some very, very accurate scanning work done by the company I was working with, a company called Survey Operations from Skelmersdale in the UK. And they produced a fantastic point cloud I could use and layer everything to it. So I couldn't have done what I've done without having all that data to tie my photographs into, to fold them into, to attach them, to scale them accurately. But the key thing and the difficult thing was the photographs, and I had to use a number of different lenses and cameras to do that, and different techniques. It was great fun. I learned more on that job than I've learned on any single one, I think, about how to photograph and capture heritage to very, very fine detail. I mean, very fine detail in a very complex environment. I think if I can do that and share that experience, you can do pretty well anything. At the same time, it was great to spend time in this cathedral and get to know the community and the people who used it, and it was a really
how long did you stay there, or did you
well, it wasn't so long. I mean, I probably had about 6 or 7 visits. So I would take photographs, go away, process them, see what mistakes I'd made, come back and redo it. So it wasn't like a straightforward job. This wasn't like I walk around with my drone and do a church or a roof survey. It's not like that. And you see lots of these drone models of the outside of a building, but I always say, I'm screaming at LinkedIn or social media going, well, what about the inside? That's even more important and more interesting than the roof and the walls. But you don't see it because it is quite complicated to do. You've got to know about photography first in order to do it. But it turns out it's not that hard. Idiots like me have made all the mistakes, so I can show people how to do it. And that's really what I do now, is share how to do that, how to take 360 imagery, how to do photogrammetry indoors, and how to cope with different lights. It was the best job, and also the one that drove me insane. But getting through that was a real challenge. But the results, I'm impressed with it, and I'm not really impressed with my own stuff. I'm my own worst critic, but I think it's good.
Oh, okay. So you just gave about, I think, 3 easy wins for better images that you just shared with us. Don't move. I don't know, keep it sharp. So what else can we give for just easy wins for better images?
I think it's just slow down.
Slow down. Okay. Take your time.
Slow down and think. Take your time, exactly.
That's not easy in times like these, because everything's getting faster and faster. And I think.
And I get conversations that people will say to me. So there's another project I'm working on, and they've asked me how long would it take, and I said a year, and they went, what? And I said, yeah, it's going to take a year. And they said, well, but I said it's not going to be like 365 days on site. It's going to be 3 or 4 days on site, and then a break of 2 or 3 weeks, and then come back and do more.
Okay, so you need that time in between, where you just need your time to work on the pictures to see if it works, the kind of way technique you use on site, or why you need so much time in between.
You don't necessarily need so much time in between. It's just that you've got other jobs to do. So you have to fit it in. Because it's going to take a while, then you have to be flexible and think, okay, in most cases, what they need it for is for research, archiving, insurance, documentation. Of course, you can do it much more quickly. But the level of detail you're going to get is probably not going to be as good. So yes, I could have done that job in 2 weeks. But I wouldn't have got the level of definition and be able to color calibrate all the images and all the things that heritage documentation require. So you don't have to spend that amount of time, but in this case you do, and you go slow and you build it in, because you'd have to commit 3 months to the project, but you can't. You've got other customers and other demands coming in, so you just say, look, if you want to do it to what the level, then it's going to take you 6 months. And this one, it's a year, because they've got 4 buildings that they want to do. And you're just trying to be realistic. To do what we did there is not easy. It's not like running around with a scanner or a hand scanner or whatever else you're going to do. That's easy. This is another level. Having said that, an awful lot of the basic photogrammetry can be done very, very quickly, and the same techniques I used in the cathedral can be used on day-to-day work, whether that's tunnel inspection or bridge inspection, or surveying or interior surveys, fire risk, things to do with anything to do with the AEC sector. Photogrammetry is often the best solution for it, especially now as we're working not just with static photographs, but we're using a new technique called videogrammetry. Well, it's not new. What is new is the accuracy and repeatability again. So videogrammetry now, just walking around with a 360 camera, we can get remarkable levels of accuracy. Not the same as a laser scanner, a static laser scanner might get, but good enough for a lot of applications. So it's different. Photogrammetry can be really detailed or just basic stuff. The point is you can do both. You can go to a level of detail with photogrammetry to 0.1 of a millimeter if you really want to. If the client needs it, you can. But most clients don't need that. They just need to know if there's a chair in that classroom.
Okay.
Okay.
Barry, you just talked about new projects, and one of the projects will also that you will be on site in Frankfurt at INTERGEO 2025. You will give a presentation there on Wednesday on the application stage. And what will it be about? So we'll talk about reality capture, photogrammetry, or the different kind of photos or quality and imagery. So what are you going to talk about? Can you drop it?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd like to talk about is the two aspects at either end. A little bit about quality and how important that is, and how important investing in that is as a skill is. But I also want to talk about findability, because that is one of the biggest issues. Because I think in the geospatial sector, our clients need help. They need to solve problems, and findability in imagery or in a point cloud is huge. There's no point giving a client a point cloud if they can't say, well, where is that fire extinguisher, or where is that room? They need to know. So how do you do that? So although I'll be talking about image quality, at the same time you can tie that into findability as well, because you can do it in the same software. And that's what I really want to talk about, is how anyone, this isn't very expensive. This is, a couple of $100. This isn't about investing in a £500,000 mobile scanning system. This is about common sense and applying some really simple basic solutions to increase productivity. 24% or 24 to 25%, depending on who you listen to, McKinsey or Gartner, say that in any organization, 25% of the organization's time is spent looking for information. Now, that's looking for images, the right image, and 1 in 4 times they don't find it. Now, if you can increase the speed and the findability of things in the data that we're providing, surely that's something that's useful. And we can't keep just doing the same thing, like here's a point cloud, here's a 2D elevation, here's this, here's that. Our customers want much, much more. And the interesting thing in the geospatial sector is we can help them. And we can add value to what we're doing. So it's no more this commodity, we all use the same scanner, the same software, we go out, press the same button, we have the same deliverable. If you want to make yourself different and you want to get more revenue, helping your client find bits in the data that you are providing, to me, is key. So that's really what I want to focus on, the two aspects. A little bit on findability, on image quality and why is that so important, but then looking at findability and how we can find and help our client to use things. If I've got 1,000 photographs of a railway tunnel, wouldn't it be good to our client to say, oh, by the way, here's a photograph of all the signage, or here's a folder of a photograph of all the cracks, oh, here's a photograph of all the places where we've got vegetation growing. Oh, and not only is it a photograph, we also tell you where on the model it is. So that's what I'll be talking about, is the power of the camera to capture and share information.
Okay, wow, super interesting. Barry, INTERGEO is always about innovation and just kind of a community meeting. What new features or innovations, technical developments are you most excited about, or what do you see within the next 2 years would kind of be very exciting for the branch, for the community of the geospatial experts?
I think there's lots. I'm particularly interested in AI, and particularly interested in Gaussian splats and what they can bring to the type of data we can share with a client. It's one thing giving people a 2D drawing, but to give a Gaussian splat at the site as well. So architects, designers, stakeholders, clients can see better in 3D than just a 2D drawing or a point cloud. What has happened even over the last year, and I've just come back from SciGraph Vancouver, where AI, Gaussian splats were high on the agenda, and looking at the steps we're taking and how fast that is progressing, I think it's worrying personally. I think it should be worrying the survey equipment manufacturers. Because I can see us move into an area where we're using Gaussian splats, not right now, but very soon we will be able to get very strong textures and very good accuracy out of them. We will need surveying skills to put control in to do that, I'm sure, but an awful lot of the detail we won't require that. So much so, I mean, I'm looking at the laser scanner market and looking and going, okay, you have a limited lifetime. Okay, so I'm looking at that type of technology, and I'm launching some software of my own shortly anyway. But I'm working with a number of partners to help the whole AI with this findability thing. And Gaussian splats would seem the obvious way to do it. So there's Gaussian splats, but I also think cameras. I think the camera being used alongside a total station for control is the way the surveyors are going to have to go. And I think every single surveyor should be as strong in photography skills as they are in surveying skills. Knowing what they can do, knowing how to take a good photograph, will be the differentiator on their CV. If I was looking at a surveyor now and I saw photography, right, he's going to get a preference over someone who doesn't. It's that important. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's my view. I'm an old guy anyway. What do I know? So.
It does. And yeah, we will also dive deeper at INTERGEO. We will see us soon in Frankfurt. Okay. And then we will also have a time to chat once again. And if you want to meet Barry, so also the link to the ticket shop will be down here in the description. And meet him at the application stage and also on site in the exhibition halls. Barry, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your insights. I think that makes a lot of sense to a lot of people of the INTERGEO community. And yeah, we will continue the conversation soon. So thank you very much for joining this.
Thank you for your time. Yeah, thank you for your time, Denise. Lovely to meet you. And I'm looking forward to having a cup of coffee or maybe even a beer in Frankfurt with some friends. And if anybody wants to pick, if anybody wants to tap me on the shoulder and just ask me anything or just say hello, that'd be perfect. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also find Barry on LinkedIn. This is how I also contacted you. He will answer shortly, immediately. And thank you very much. This was INTERGEO TV Expert Talk with Barry Bassnett.